I'm Sonia, a personal brand and style coach. My journey began in the corporate world and through lived experiences has led me where I am today. I've walked in those uncomfortable shoes, faced the same challenges and questioned my path to professional success while simultaneously navigating my personal style journey and the challenges that each decade brings. I wholeheartedly believe in the fusion of personal brand and style strategy. My mission here is to provide you with practical, actionable strategies and lived experiences to help you unlock your next level of success through the power of personal brand and style. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Style and Strategy podcast. Today, I'm so excited to introduce Danielle Hofer, the founder of Crying in My Cheesecake. I've had the pleasure of knowing Danielle really now for, has it been, I think about 18 months or so, and she's made a significant impact in my life, and I'm very privileged to count her as one of my close friends. So Danielle is a traditional naturopathic doctor, nutritional therapy practitioner, and a certified prenatal postpartum coach. She has a robust background in education and strong dedication to health and wellness. She's turned her own personal health challenges into a really successful business. Danielle's work focuses on helping individuals achieve optimal health through root cause solutions that honor the innate intelligence of the body through functional nutrition and lifestyle support. Danielle, welcome to the Style and Strategy podcast.
Oh my gosh, Sonia, thank you so much for having me. And who would have thought I would be in a style and strategy podcast? This is so much fun.
Absolutely. Look, Danielle, part of this podcast has always been talking about career transitions, personal brand, as well as style. So I'd love for you to just kind of take me back a little bit and talk to me really around what were some of the pivotal moments in your life that got you to transition from sort of teaching and then becoming this traditional naturopathic doctor? Like, how did you even get there?
Oh, goodness. So follow with me here. As a young child of a very political family, and my dad was a deputy sheriff for 40 some years, and my mom was the town beautician. And so I was always living in a fishbowl. And I knew that I had to perform, and I knew that I had giftings. I knew that I had wisdom. I got the honor of sitting around lots of prominent men in the community and all of this. And over the time, even the things I played as a child was I was a teacher. I was a teacher to everybody and anybody around me. And even as I moved into teenage years, those years that you feel like you start to go through this rebellion and all of that, even then, I was still teaching. My friends came to me to be taught things, not necessarily about school. Yes, there were school things, but it was just this idea of teaching. And so I went to college and became a teacher, and middle school, 7th and 8th grade English were my favorite. And I did inner city class. I taught inner city, and they, like, middle schoolers, we call them middle schoolers. They are my favorite creature in the world because every day is so different with them. And every day is a day to teach them. And 8th grade, honestly, is the last time that you can put impact on changing who an adult is going to be, who that
Wow.
child is going to be as an adult. So at 14 years old, it was such an honor and it gave me so much joy to support these children going into their adulthood and seeing, just having that last impact, right? Like, and I'm not saying we don't have impact throughout as we get older, other people impact us, but really, if you think about it, when you were 14 years old, your same insecurities are the same when you're an adult. Like, they're the exact same ones. They may look different, they may manifest different, but they're the same. And so I became a teacher. And then when I became a mom, inner city schools, at least here in the Midwest and across the states, inner city, when you think of inner city schools, we think of gang members, we think of unhoused children, children that are 13 and 14 raising siblings. We think of lots of just family dynamics different than what a traditional family would be. And it's very hard. And it required all of me to be there. It required me to be mom. And sometimes they would call me mom, but it would require a lot of me. And I wanted to raise my own children. So I let that go. And then we're talking about this transition of even style. So I was
Yeah.
over 300 pounds at this time, okay? And I want you to have this idea of I'm 5'10". I'm not sure what that translates to, but I'm 5'10". I am tall. I am broad. I'm a big girl. And as a teacher, it really did work for me because I was around all these big teenage boys, right? It was great. But my style then, when I look back at it and how I felt in my clothes, I felt like I had to look a certain way, I had to dress a certain way, and I had to be at this place of what would my mom approve of? What would my dad approve of? Now, I was in my 20s, right? Like I'm still trying to please my family and what other people think I should. And it didn't help that we had to wear suits on Mondays at work.
Yeah.
As teachers, we had to wear suits. And I understand like I'm not putting that down by any means, but it also in my mind it reinforced that I had to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, but brown was the color. And my husband made fun of me because everything I wore was brown. And it wasn't just because it was stylish, but I felt like I could hide.
Wow.
It wasn't black because I felt like black is professional, it's sleek, it's like black is
Yeah.
always in. And the brown for me allowed me to mute in. And that also kind of reflected how I was. I was very depressed. I was very anxious. I was on medicines for all of these things. And my blood pressure was insanely high as a teacher, which sadly, that's part of the profession. But I come from a long line of diabetes and heart disease. And I was over 300 pounds, trying to have a baby, had lots of infertility struggles, had the morning of coming home and not being a teacher anymore, not having that identity as a teacher anymore. My wardrobe reflected how I felt about myself. I'd lost my identity. I was in gym clothes all the time. And if you can call them gym clothes, they were actually tattered rags from high school. And I lost everything about myself. And then as we continued, we had to do fertility to get pregnant. And as I was nursing my second child in the heart hospital in Northeast Indiana, waiting on my dad to come out of a quintuple bypass surgery. We're talking 5 arteries were bypassed. He was on a bypass machine for at least 12 hours, maybe more. They warned us that he would come out and it would be scary because they come out on a ventilator and they're not breathing on their own because a machine had breathes for them for those hours. And I was nursing my daughter, my second child, and I was not scared. I had no fear because I assumed, because heart disease had been such a prevalent thing. My dad's first heart attack was when he was 42 and I was 11. I saw a worldview of low fat, like dieting all the time. I saw this as like this was this was the next thing on my list. So at 28 years old, I thought this was just normal. It was on par for the course. They do these surgeries all the time. What could go wrong? He's going to survive. And my wake up call was soon after. My dad wasn't the same anymore. While he was alive, he was not there mentally. And how could he be? A machine was pumping blood for him and moving oxygen through his body. He was not there. And his mental health declined, his whole health declined. And I'm not saying that he hasn't had other things in the past, like the diabetes and the other heart issues and things. But that was my wake up call. Something was not normal. Something needed to change in my life. And I would love to say that that changed everything for me. But I am hard-headed. I am an educator. Like, I want to learn all the things and not do all the things, right? I want to know everything, but not put it into play. And so it wasn't until, I think it was February of 2018. It was President's Day weekend in February of 2018. And I went for a hike on my first mountain, sitting at over 300 pounds. I'd already had all 3 children. And I climbed my first mountain. And I've always been an athlete. I've always been a high achiever in everything. And while every step, because again, living in the Midwest, we have no altitude here. Like everything's flat. So climbing a mountain at definitely a different altitude, it took my breath away. But so did that experience on the top. Looking out over Lake Spooner, and then behind that was Lake Tahoe, something finally connected. And I realized I had lost myself in serving everyone else's needs, including pleasing my employer, pleasing my mom, pleasing my dad, pleasing them, whoever them is, on how I'm raising my children. And I realized as well that I hadn't belly laughed. I'm a belly laugher. Sonia, you know this. I belly laugh over everything. I'm loud. I hadn't belly laughed in years. And I laughed so hard that I fell on ice and thought I broke something. It was funny. And I was laughing. At that moment was that pivotal change in my mind. And I wonder how many of us that are overachievers that want to learn all the things, and we want to say we want to do all the things, but we don't realize how intertwined, like how our outsides are matching our insides. And that includes fashion. And I don't mean fashion as in like, are you on the latest trends? I mean how you present yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that transformed, and that is actually why my brand has mountains in it. Because it's the mountain that changed me. And there's always going to be another mountain in front of us. It's just how mentally and physically in shape are we to climb it? How relationally are we in line to climb it? Do we have the support network? Do we have the right people in our corner? Do we have people to push us and drag us and pull us? And do we have people to cheers with at the top?
Yeah.
And that started my transition of, okay, I need to lose some weight. I know now that weight loss is not a root cause. Weight issues are actually a surface level thing. But I lost a bunch of weight, super fit, super lean. But then all of a sudden I started having cystic acne breakout. And I'm like, how is this possible? I'm like really healthy right now. My labs look great. Like everything looks great. How is that possible? Well, I was eating low fat, no fat, everything, and choosing to eat like fast all day so I could eat a large pizza for dinner. And there was no vegetables. There was none of, all the things. And then I realized that if food can affect me that much, that must mean that food can also heal me. And then that's when I chose to go in the direction of the nutritional therapy practitioner. And then the limitation is like nutrition doesn't fix me, but there's a whole root cause. There's a whole innate intelligence of the body that we can work with, and we can create this space of working with it so it can heal. It speaks. The body is speaking. When we have a weird headache or we have this weird eye twitch that happens, I don't know, am I talking to some neurotic people like me? If we have constipation, if we're not going to the bathroom 2 to 4 times a day, those are all signs. Craving sugar, craving caffeine, all of those things are signs, and the body is talking to us. And what it's saying is it needs to heal. It needs you to like give it what it needs. And it doesn't always start with food. So that's why, and like watching people's transitions, watching my own transition, it is such an honor. It's so humbling that I even get a front row view of this.
Yeah.
And like that whole thing of, transitioning from, I'm just going to call it turd brown when I was a teacher, like that season to the slob rags season, to scared to show myself who I really am and worried about what other people think, to now taking ownership of what I look like on the outside and having that confidence is because I've done all the inner work. And people will say you need to have, spiritual work, you need to have energy work, all of this stuff. And I'm not saying you don't, but confidence is from your cells. When each of the cells are firing and have energy and vibrance, I mean, you can see my skin. My skin has been clear for a very long time. And you can't Botox that. Like, you can't make skin look good with Botox. I've seen some really bad skin with Botox, okay? But, like, that is moving that forward into how I present myself now. I want to present myself in a structured, hey, I've learned that word from Sonia. I want to present myself in a structured way because that's who I am. I am structured. Everything I do and everything that comes, like my habits, the way I treat patients, everything has a structure to it. And I want to come across as structured and confident because I am. And I also want to come across as open and warm and inviting. And so that has like kind of shifted in some of my wardrobe as well.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Danielle, there is so much to unpack there. You've had such a really emotional as well as like long journey of so many pivotal kind of moments through your life and life story. So if I take me back to, you touched on that, the brown suits and trying to find yourself through that time and using that as a bit of point in time as to feeling like you needed to be someone else, right? Because that was you needed to hide because the perception of others and falling into that. What do you think some triggers were for you to identify that
Yeah.
sometimes we are doing this on autopilot, as I would call it? We don't even realize we're doing it. What were some of the key triggers that made you suddenly realize that actually I am people pleasing or I am trying to live up to everybody else's expectations around that time or any of the others?
Oh, that's a really good question. Hindsight's always 2020, isn't it?
Mm,
So I would ask your listeners that are listening right now, I would ask you to take an inventory. What is your motive behind what you're doing and your decision making? Is your motive because you feel aligned with that decision? Or is that motive, and I'm saying decisions of food that's going in your mouth, what restaurants you go to, what you're buying at the grocery store, what you're putting on your body, your buying habits, your spending habits, everything. Who you
mm,
hang out with, who are you choosing to associate with? What is the motive behind it?
mm,
And for me, my motive was I was afraid to do something wrong because I was taught that would disgrace my family name. That was very much embedded. Like, even my dad said it last summer when I was over there helping take care of him. It was very stern and very, I don't know, like he was trying to parent me again, which
mm,
whatever. But that piece of I could not destroy my family's name. What would they think of me? And so every
mm.
decision I made was made out of that lens, as
Yeah.
I don't want to cause problems with them. So by wearing brown or muted tones of different colors of khaki, different colors of, or I guess I would say earth tones, right? Like
Yeah.
earth tones allowed me to just blend in. And
Mm,
that way I didn't rock the boat. And if I felt like I was going to rock the boat, that's called codependency.
yeah.
And codependency, if I feel like I have to walk on eggshells or I have to perform, and I also felt like I was always told I was too much. I was always told I was too loud. I was always told that I was mean or all of these other things.
Mm,
And so again, all of these family stories were going on, these family, I guess, upbringing things were going through my brain as I was at the stores.
mm,
As I was walking through J.C. Penney, I was walking through Kohl's or, what other stores, I was looking through there and I'm like, the bright colors are beautiful, but I would always say, that's not me because I'm already too big, too loud, too much. How
mm.
would walking in a hot pink suit look to my mom? It would look obnoxious to her because I'm already too much.
Yeah.
And so that was part of that trigger that are like what I would say in hindsight 2020 is that I didn't want to be too much.
Wow. Danielle, I've got goosebumps listening to that. And it is a familiar theme that I hear when I work with clients that when you do pull back, and I think as like I loved those questions that you put out, an alternative to that and really to go simple is coming from some of the theory that I learned being Six Sigma qualified was, ask that 5 whys. Just keep asking why until you can get down to, well, you've said this at the surface level. What keep asking why in whatever circumstance. But that's another kind of way to get there. I love that. And
Yeah.
so then when you started to work through your programs, and I didn't realize the connection all this time between, I know you've got a membership with the Wilderness of Wellness and all of that. I didn't realize the connection with nature and that pivotal moment, that's how all of that came through. So I absolutely love that connection. But when you're working with women through their wellness and getting them to really understand some of those root causes and getting them to make those
Yeah.
changes, what do you find are some of the challenges that people have in, like, if they're in that environment, then to actually start to make that change? Yes, the first start is maybe joining and saying, yes, you know what, I want to make a change. But then we know, like with exercise, with eating, with changing your style, any of those things, it's okay to say it, but to actually then implement it and make it stick is probably one of the hardest things to do. So how do you go about that?
That is really good because I actually have colleagues that are just like, I cannot believe you have created a space that offers all of this. And I am saying this like truly shocked that they would eat, because these are respected people that I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. And they're telling me because they can't get compliance with their patients and their clients.
Mm.
And so what I have created is that space in between. And so where do we start? I always start with, if you even have a thought that I need help, that's when you reach out. You need to be in a space where you can be honest with yourself and honest with me. That is step one. And honesty can simply be, I feel like dirt right now, or I feel like, this, or I'm struggling, and like expressing your fears, expressing that discomfort of change. But I think one thing that people really struggle with, and that the missing link is community. And it's the
Mm.
right kind of community, because we are the sum of the 5 people that we talk to the most. And if those 5 people are enabling us to stay the same or pulling us back and wanting us to stay the same, and what does that sound like? It sounds like you sending your girlfriend a text and saying, "Oh my gosh, I've had such a hard day. I don't want to go to the gym today."
Mm.
And then that girlfriend saying, "Oh, girl, you deserve it. You have worked so hard and you've been so good on your diet. It's okay. You don't have to go today." That is an enabling behavior that I no longer accept as valid in my life. And
Mm.
no longer do the women in my group either. And I think that's the thing, is that we put a demand, not on purpose, but like we put a demand on the people that are closest to us to keep us accountable. That's not their job. Their job is
Mm.
to be friends with us, to go and have a good time and enjoy life with.
Mm.
Your spouse is not your accountability partner. Your spouse's job is to do life with you. Do the things of the house, do like be best friends, do all of that kind of stuff. Your spouse is not your accountability partner either. And creating a space so community, right? But the right kind of community. And I have built this space where it is a safe space. What does that mean? A safe space means you feel open and safe enough to be vulnerable, because
Mm.
vulnerability leads to human connection. And then human connection is where change happens, and that
Mm.
sustainable change happens. So I can tell you, I can write you a prescription, a protocol. I can tell you exactly what to do. You're not going to do it, maybe for 30 days, but you're not going to do it. If you're a type A personality, you're going to do it for 6 months, 8 months, maybe. Okay. For extra credit, you're not going to do it because you have to leave my office and go home. You have other people. You have a life to deal with. You need people in your back pocket to support you. So community, right there. First of all, being honest with yourself and honest with someone else or with me. Community, a safe community. And then the third thing you need is support in the mindset. You already know probably what habits you're doing that are not healthy. I
Mm.
always start with the mindset. That's phase 1 in my success path, because in everything I start with your identity, actually, in the mindset. Because just like I was talking about earlier, we have a lens and go through life with our lived experience.
Mm.
Me sitting at 300 pounds and saying, "Oh, this is going to be fine for my dad to have quintuple bypass and I'm next." I could choose to live that story and choose to live that in that identity. Whereas I choose to say I'm a healthy person. So if I'm a healthy person, I'm going to do what healthy people do. I'm not going to run through the drive-through and go get food from fast food places. I am a healthy person's not going to do that. A healthy person is going to go to the grocery store and going to go get a quality protein, a quality fat, and a quality carb. And that's what we do. When we go on road trips, we don't stop at fast food unless we use the restroom. But we don't stop at fast food. We literally stop at our grocery stores because our grocery stores now have gas stations or petrol. You just call it petrol, whatever.
Yeah.
We have gas stations, but they now have that. So you can fuel up and go in the grocery store and go to the bathroom and get your food. And you don't even have to be tempted by other things because, again, when we allow ourselves to be in a space of temptation, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
And we're worth more. We're definitely worth more than a drive-through. We're worth more than a meal that can be made in 2 minutes.
And so thinking about that, I think we're really lucky here in Australia. And I think, Danielle, you've experienced some of the cuisines and things like that we've got access really everywhere for really healthy options for us. But sometimes as busy professionals or really ambitious women out there, the challenge becomes prepping, making it, being able to be ready in kind of those circumstances. And the same sort of applies, when it comes to their style, etc. But looking at the preparation piece and really supporting implementation around that, what would be your top 3 tips for someone?
Okay, so I would definitely hydrate. First of all, I would make sure you have plenty of water, pure, clean water. This is going to go against almost everybody, what they say. I would say distilled water. Have distilled water on and drink half your body weight in ounces, or I don't know what that refers to in metrics. So half your body weight in ounces of water. Go get, for meal prepping, all of that for the busy woman. Don't make it hard. Go get a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store. That is however many lunches you can have there. You can get a wrap, fill it with hummus or tzatziki and some carrots, some cucumbers, that kind of thing, and just make that's a blood sugar balanced meal for the stressed woman. Add some good quality cheese in there. Just don't make it so hard. If you could go in and I think what we get so wrapped up in this idea that, oh my gosh, it has to be in these meal prep containers. It has to be washed and done this way. I rock up with rotisserie chicken to my office and I just peel off pieces when I need it. I take vegetables and like I said, I'll make salads on the fly, get bagged salad and get some rotisserie chicken meat, get some lunch meat. Again, don't make it harder than it has to be, but you want a good solid protein, some good vegetables and fruit, and some good quality water. Bingo. That's it.
Nice and simple, the way I like it. Now, if I think about, you've had this amazing transition, and for those that eventually jump onto maybe Danielle's website or check out her Instagram, you'll see, her style and her brand over the years has significantly changed the woman she is today. So tell me a little bit around the compare and contrast around who you are today and the way that your brand is represented and your style compared to maybe a bit earlier on in your journey.
Oh my goodness. So I would say I still, like I said, the structure, the suit thing still is my favorite piece of wardrobe. Like I will rock a suit any day, anytime, and a pantsuit. This is another thing, if I may. I struggle and I felt a struggle with feeling too masculine because I am a bigger woman. And even my kids make fun of me because they were like, one time I was coming out of the grocery store and I was walking out with 2 other men. And my kids were like, the only reason why we knew it was you is because of the hair. And I was like, guys, because I am as tall as many men. And that's fine. But rocking a pantsuit lets me feel structured. It makes me feel safe. It makes me feel safe in my body. It makes me feel like I can step into the role that I am. I'm a leader and I know I am. Whether I'm in charge that day or not, I'm going to be the one that people are going to be asking questions to. And I'm comfortable with that now-ish. But that and changing the colors, like even though my business brand colors are not necessarily what I wear, I'm comfortable in finding that I am like I look good in summer colors, like that brighter, like lighter tones. And it makes me just feel like I love how my skin looks. I love how my eyes glisten. I love how my body, my shoulders, I love how I can accentuate those with a sleeveless shirt. That's typically like that's kind of been the change is finding that comfort. But even just slightly before this, okay, slightly before this, it was another identity thing where I would just go out in workout gear all the time
Mm.
because I felt confident. I love not powerlifting. I love Olympic lifting and CrossFit. And I found my identity in that, right? I was confident because I'm lifting as much as men do and all of that. And I think it's funny, and I enjoy it and it's confident. So I dressed in this, I guess what I could say is my wardrobe and the attire that I would wear literally represented where I was confident or not.
Mm.
And that's shifted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you really articulated that in a way that sometimes I struggle to articulate back to clients is that where you feel most comfortable, that's where, where your power is, all of that. That's why you're gravitating to those particular outfits. So there's much more to it than that. And I hear a lot around, I want to feel more comfortable in my outfits, but I want to feel elevated or put together. And that is a journey, right? From both internally in order to get to your external where you feel comfortable. If I worked with a client and I put them in, that hot pink suit or whatever it would be that might push them out of their comfort zone, usually I can't get them to their ultimate where they want to be instantly because I know it won't stick. So it's that journey that you've got to go through step by step to actually get you to that ultimate sort of style vision that you've got in your mind where the inside matches the outside.
Yeah, and like even that piece of if I'm going to throw on jeans, my jeans are structured because I just feel good in it. But also, I will throw on a jacket over the top if I want to elevate my jeans because that makes me feel like I can walk into a room and actually have a posture of who I am, right?
Yeah. No, beautiful. Okay, so Danielle, if someone wanted to find out a little bit more about you and what you do, etc., how would they go about and find you?
I would just have them go to my Instagram at crying in my cheesecake and send me a DM there. That is a great place. You can also, if you want to listen to me talk even more, I get very talkative on my podcast, Crying in My Cheesecake, as well. So you can check me out in those two locations if you would like. And the website, I would have them go to the website, but it's going to be going under construction soon. So
No problem. And I will have those in the show notes. So as we move into my traditional fast 3 questions. So Danielle, tell me, and I think you might have hinted to this a little bit, signature style piece. What's that go-to signature style piece that you feel represents your current brand and why is it an essential part of your wardrobe?
it will always be the blazer jacket. That is my signature piece. And I would say probably a sleeveless shirt underneath as well, just because I can show off my shoulders and the work that I've done in that. But it will always be because it allows me to feel almost that hug. This is who I am. I love it.
Beautiful. Transformational reads. So, the listeners that have been looking for inspiration, so it might be something you're listening to as well. What's really potentially helping you through your day to day kind of journey that you can share?
So I personally, this is very nerdy of me. I struggle with reading fiction. I used to grow up reading fiction all the time, but I have been stuck on just being poured into too much. Many times I think that we as type A folk that again want to learn and high achieve, we want to learn all the things and be poured into all the time. So instead of putting more information in and not doing anything about it and living my life by the way I'm professing, like, hey, let's actually do things. Right now, what I am listening to is it's something called Shit Talk Sister Wives. It is, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm admitting all of this. Okay. So it is a Patreon, I think it's just the Sister Wives podcast. I don't know. Anyway, so let me back up. every Monday at 7 p.m., I am usually in the bathtub with Epsom salts to help take care, like a part of my routine of helping take care of my nervous system and my blood sugar and all of that, okay? And bringing down my stress. In order to habit stack and make it a priority to myself, I have to bribe myself to get in there and to calm down and to sit in the tub and do nothing, right? Because I would sit there and actually work the whole time I was in the tub because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
So I bribe myself by giving myself just fun things to zone out on, whether it's trashy TV or the podcast or whatever. It is my incentive to take care of myself. We're no better than dogs sometimes, guys. We got to give ourselves little treats here and there, right? So I have been allowing myself to be just goofy and allow myself to not learn anything new, but to lose myself in things that really don't matter because it's fun. And I think we forget that fun and that flow of fun is actually part of health and wellness and our personal brand as well.
I love that. Yes, I would say that I jump onto a nice rom-com. I do enjoy to turn off as well. And I think it is really important to remind ourselves that, especially if you do, love to learn and you've always got the headphones on or you're reading and you're learning and something new, that sometimes actually you just need that time to turn off and watch something that's a no-brainer or listen to something that's not. So thank you for reminding us of that. And so then finally, mindset ritual. We all have those days when we need an extra boost. Is there anything that you do to reset your mind that helps you feel ready to feel empowered and really tackle anything?
So that is a really good question. And that is something that is very important in my life. And it's very important in all of the women that I work with and the men too. I don't want to leave them out. But in order to reset my mind, I do what I go to my sacred space. And that is my gym inside my home. We have a 3-car garage, and one of the garage bays is my gym. And I allow myself to feel the feelings. I open my hips. Even if I'm not lifting heavy that day, I am there to push my body because you know what? I get to live in it that day. I have breath in my lungs. And I'm reminded that matters, but even more so. So let's just say that it's been a really rough week. I find myself out in the woods, hiking on mountains, climbing and going through scrambles, because then once I'm there, I realize that my problems are just this much of the world. They're just a teeny tiny blip on the dot of the world. And there are so many other bugs and other things that are still going on with their lives. There's so many trees and all of these other things that are still happening, no matter how I feel inside. My circumstances don't get to dictate how I go through life and how I behave, how I treat myself, but instead it's a responsibility that I get to live in this body, and I need to go and take care of it and get my perspective back. So ultimately, it is taking care of my body in whichever physical way it needs to be, usually grounding in the earth, working on myself that way.
Amazing. Thank you, Danielle. That's a great reminder for my listeners. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. If anyone wants to get in contact with Danielle, or go check out her Instagram as well, that'll be in the show notes, so you'll be able to find it there. So thank you so much, Danielle. Really appreciate chatting on your Friday night.
Yes. Thanks, Sonia. I'm like, our son here is your son from yesterday.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much for being part of this inspiring episode. If you found value in today's discussion, please don't keep it a secret. Share it with a friend on social media, tag me at Your Style Collective, and leave a review. Your support means the world. Join me again next week for another empowering episode of Style and Strategy, the Leadership Series. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, you're already taking that first step towards your transformation journey. See you next time.